salmon born in freshwater meander downstream hundreds of miles from the place of their birth to the salty waters of the ocean. There they live a relatively calm existence until after a few years when a biological trigger engages that propels them to migrate back to their ancestral birthing waters. Those who survive the journey of being churned and tussled, hunted and preyed upon, will eventually reproduce and initiate a new cycle of life, welcoming in a new generation of its species. Like the salmon, we too meander through the early years of our existence. And sometime in one day, we instinctively face a trigger that will test the inner core of what defines us and venture on a journey. As students, we find ourselves swirling in an eddy like a salmon from time to time. But also from time to time, we find ourselves enveloped in historical events so significant that they solidify us as who we are and provide a chronological marker that we remember. We name these markers with a single word or a date and know that they will have forever changed our lives. For me, the trigger was April 16, 2014, the Sewol-ho incident. We call it this in recognition of the 304 passengers who needlessly lost lives, 250 of whom were students the same age as you and me. Unlike other major events in Korean history, the Sewol-ho happened because of the culmination of multiple human errors. Each, on its own, could have been solved. Yet somehow collectively, they all converged on this fateful day. There were too many excuses, too many new regulations, and most importantly, there was a lack of leadership. The public cried and prayed on that day for a miracle, but none would manifest. Only heart-wrenching images of the ship sinking in a helpless nation. I, along with other students and teachers, watched events unfold in real time. From what I observed that day, most people understandably felt anger at what was happening, followed by a guilty elation that their loved ones weren't among those who perished. But for me, another emotion surfaced very quickly, that of a citizen seeking guidance from her leader. On that day, I awaited guidance and words of comfort from our president. But all I heard was silence. When the leader is unwilling to roll up her sleeves and fight side by side with her people, the people of that nation must take actions themselves. For me, that action took the shape of doing something that could make sense of everything happening around me. It was time for us to revolt. And that was when I created this movement called the Generation R. My generation and your generation also came of age, having been cuddled by parents who wanted nothing more than to protect us from the violent pro-democracy clashes of the 1970s and 80s. Yet despite their best efforts to shield us from such hardships, our nation suffered too much loss and eventually impeached our president. Over the next few years, the Sewol-ho became a permanent fixture in our identity as Koreans. Starting from October 2016, protesters began demanding the removal of President Park. This time though, they were not alone, but they were joined together with the parents of the Sewol victims who have been standing vigil in Gwanghwamun for 2 years as a reminder of what happened to their loved ones. The presidential protests of 2016 and 2017 were of course very truly amazing for having been peaceful and attracting over 1 million people. But for me, having already felt disappointed at the inaction of the president 2 years earlier, this also somehow seemed wrong. The motivation and intent seemed no different from people who go to music or sports events. Everywhere you looked, social media was flooded with images of Peking and Gwanghwamun and tagged with #Halchosun, #protest, #democracy, #for Korea, yay! When I asked a few of my friends why they went, they answered. They responded. They all responded that it was a fun thing to do. This was wrong. It was not a true revolt. Unlike the salmon who struggled to return to somewhere known and familiar, my generation, everyone, took along with the waves without any significant individualized impact. The 2016-2017 protests were therefore no different than a fad diet. Let me explain. Let's say that I weigh 60 kilograms, right? I really want to look nice. I want to find myself fitting into smaller clothes. So I decided not to eat anything for 3 weeks. Well, I did great. I lost 10 kilograms, and I found myself fitting into tighter clothes. But now what? Right? I can't continue to starve myself, so I start eating again. What happens? I'm right back where I started. Okay then, what's an ideal diet? Well, an ideal diet is something that's manageable and is consistent of many different factors such as diet, exercise, and attitude. So basically, it's a lifestyle change. Generation R symbolizes the need for change, but also embraces the reality of the characteristics of my generation. It realizes that people should recognize the consequences of what will ultimately happen to the nation and understand what will also ultimately happen to the nation after disrupting the citizens' lives with the intent on recruiting them to join a movement. Therefore, how do we reach our true potential as a unified generation and revolt? Do we don masks and become full-blown social justice warriors like is happening in the United States and Europe? Or do we cripple down the government and commerce through million people marches and occupations? Or do we make a small sustainable changes that can collectively create a long-term shift in our culture? The first method won't work in Korea because it will be viewed as too extreme. People won't participate. The second method may be effective, but only for a short people. Then the only option for my generation, for you and me, is the third one. How do we make this work? Currently, we're not informed. We don't even read current news. You don't know what's going on in this nation. We're actually very uneducated about the societal problems. But most importantly, we also haven't had discussions amongst ourselves. While the 3-6 generation of Korea was famous for having social discourse where they planned for a better government in the future, my generation panicked every single time they can't find parents. We may be physically together, but we don't socially engage. We must discuss. Unlike golds or diamonds, that's in my poster, ideas do not increase in value if we keep them locked up inside. We should not be embarrassed to share our ideas. We should not criticize others simply because they have a different thought. We should not force you to be on my side, but we should understand others' point of view. We should be informed, and we should look forward to a world where we can unite under a common cause. Another important factor in a sustainable revolt is choosing a career that is socially acceptable and not just driven by the acquisition of wealth. In the past, top Korean graduates studied overseas because they dreamt of ways to make their country better. Now, top Korean graduates from MIT, Harvard, and Princeton are recruited to work for tech companies or finance companies whose primary goal is to make their shareholder of their companies richer. In this respect, now our teachers and parents should now educate us on the significance of our career choices. We, like the Salmon, should go against the social norm and be the ones who can really show the difference. We should show by example that protests do not actually have to necessarily lead to hardships, but that they bring about an answer to reverse our path toward a dystopian society. We should go upstream because we want to fight problems. We should go upstream because we want to sincerely seek for solutions. Rather than agreeing to what we're told to do, this requires challenging the authority of everyone. If what you are being told to do does not adhere to the creation of a more positive society, then you must stop and question the directive. That is how our generation can seek a change. Our generation must be different because we are the only ones who can really be effective in changing the society. Okay, so upon this point, you're having a very curious look. You guys might be thinking, okay, so I get your point. But I think your beliefs in your movement of Generation R is too grandiose and simply nonsense. I think it'd be better for you to go and earn money and build a well in a destitute village or clean the house of an elderly woman in your neighborhood for like twice a month. And my answer is, yes, you're correct. My beliefs are grandiose. My movements are simply nonsensical. But isn't that how we make a mark in our society? 65 years ago, the people of the United States struggled to understand why they had to continue on with their nation's concerted and epic efforts to send a person to a moon. In a speech given by President John F. Kennedy, he told his citizens that they were going to the moon because the struggle would unite them as a person and as a nation and provide the best qualities of your generation. If we take the easy path, then our generation will be remembered for nothing. We should show by example that protests not necessarily have to lead to hardships. So rather than outlining for you how to revolt, how to make sustainable changes, I'd like to give you one example and then ask you that you all find your own ways of making a sustainable change and get together, discuss, and share your ideas with others. If you think you're insignificant, then consider this for a while. Today's economy relies on sales through marketing. And my generation, our generation, is the first generation that was either born with the option of playing with a smartphone or a pacifier. Companies, they know this. So they market their sales through our web browser accounts. If a company insists on utilizing harmful manufacturing practices, then block their ads and post comments on their websites to tell them, and that reminds people of this point. Spread your work through Instagram or Twitter, not your selfie, but upload a photo to show that you deserve something better. That is how our generation can ultimately seek a change. We are actually more powerful, far more powerful than we realize. We will ultimately run industry, government, and eventually be responsible for the welfare of the nation. We should show by example. We should show that our generation is far more powerful. Understand that social awareness doesn't come from uploading selfies and posting it on your timeline. Understand that you have to be the ones who's going to make a change. Do what is difficult. We are the Gen R, the generation of revolt. Thank you.